Hey, Minuteman Preparedness. So I wanted to talk about an issue that's been going on for quite some years now. If you pay attention, it's discussed in the news, in the media a little bit, um, but not a lot. And a lot of people hadn't paid a lot of attention to it. I have. I've talked to people about it for years, but it's finally making a hit in the media. So, several days ago, the outgoing director of the FBI, Director Christopher Wray, did an interview on 60 Minutes. And a portion of that interview, he talked about cyber attacks and how much of an issue it is we're going to be facing in the United States with that, especially with the Taiwan situation. And at this time, China is making a carrier type platforms where they can transport equipment and troops and drop them on the beach, similar to what was used in World War II. So he discussed one of the main groups, which I've heard of them before, but I had to do a little bit of research earlier today on them. But Salt Typhoon, they're a Chinese Ministry of Security backed group. They engage in advanced cyber espionage. They don't just mess or conduct their operations against the United States. They do it to many different countries. So one thing that the outgoing director discussed was Salt Typhoons and other hacker operations, their infiltration into our critical infrastructure, that being water treatment facilities, the electrical grid, pipelines, transportation, banking, cellular, and health care. So how these groups gain access, and again, I am not good with computers and all that type of stuff, so I had to do a little looking around to see exactly how all this works. But apparently, especially Salt Typhoon, they use something called a Windows kernel mode rootkit, so they're able to gain remote control access over the target servers. Apparently, this group, they use a high level of sophistication, and they utilize anti-forensics and anti-analysis techniques to evade detection. And that's one thing that the outgoing director talked about, was the infiltration of all of these different sectors. Their servers have been infiltrated, some of them for years, and these Windows kernel mode rootkits have been installed, but they're installed so deep and they're covered up. A lot of the analysis that's utilized to try to find these things and root them out and get them out of the servers, out of the system, they can't do it. They're unable to locate all of them. And for the most part, he said they're there. They're in all of our, important areas, whether it be water treatment, electrical pipeline, cellular, and banking. So over the past couple of years, there have been some issues. So back in 2001 in Florida, there was a hacker gained access to a water treatment facility and altered the chemical levels. They used a dormant software that had been in there for, I believe they said 6 months. It was something called TeamViewer, which is a Germany-based company, and apparently it's utilized in I guess specifically the water treatment sector. It may be utilized in other areas, but it's so employees and contractors and whatnot can gain access to that. Apparently, that's how access was gained to that. And then I did a little bit more digging on that story, and it looks like they didn't know maybe if it was an employee or something like that. But then what was odd was in June, that was in Florida, June of 2021 in California, a hacker deleted several programs used to treat water at the water treatment facility. Access to that was also gained through TeamViewer. It looked like there may have been an arrest made, and that was a disgruntled employee. But I find it kind of strange how these two events both occurred in 2021 through this same access point, at the same time. It's just a little odd to me. But even if it was a disgruntled employee, apparently these back doors and these programs, especially the back doors, are built into a lot of things, especially the cellular network, and we'll get into that in a moment. That's how a lot of these hacking groups gain access. So then we'll move down to, it looks like May 2024. This was on CNN. They did an article write up about the water treatment facilities, and they stated in an article that they have weak security practices at the water treatment facilities, and they're easily accessed by hackers, which that should be something scary and worrisome to you. I wouldn't, you don't want to panic or anything, but it's something to think about. If you utilize municipal water sources, if they're pulling that water out the river or stormwater or wherever it may be, it has to be cleaned and processed. And they utilize chemicals. I'm not a fan of that. I don't utilize municipal water. I don't care for all the chemicals they put in it, but they can alter those chemical levels. They can make them real high and make you sick, which is what happened in one of these situations. They caught it though. Or they could just set it to where no chemicals or very low amount of chemicals go into water. So then you're drinking, dirty water, and as I've talked about on my Instagram, consuming water that hasn't been purified and cleaned correctly can make you extremely sick. So then we move to mid 2024, so a few months ago, and this was talked about on the news. The Federal Reserve was hacked, and 33 terabytes of data on U.S. citizens was taken from the government. Excuse me, I got a lot here, so I had to make some notes. And then March 2024, there was a ransomware attack on the country's largest healthcare payment processor. There was 100 million individuals that their records were taken. And through this payment processor, that was any forms of payment, your name, address, possible social security number, medical records, because the records and payments went through this company. That's 100 million individuals. Their information was taken. That was a hacker. Then you got a few months back in June 2024, I remember hearing about this quite a bit. A company called CDK, they provide software to auto dealers. During that time, if you're trying to get your vehicle fixed, a lot of the shops, especially at the major dealerships, they were unable to work on your vehicle for the most part because CDK, it is a software program that the dealerships use to purchase parts and check inventories and all that type of stuff. So they were essentially shut down, and I do believe that CDK paid the ransom to get access back to their network or their software or whatnot. So just several months ago, Um, in November of 24, Salt Typhoon, that Chinese-backed hacking group, gained access to cell networks and cell records, and they even gained access to high-level government officials, the Trump campaign, and I believe the Harris campaign. Um, they were able to retrieve a lot of data, and that was through a handful of the cellular networks. Um, so we've talked about healthcare, uh, cellular communications, water treatment, banking, parts which is part of the infrastructure. You got to have these vehicles fixed. So then we'll move over to the power grid. So there was a study done back in 2022 that talked about this, and it looks like, and I knew our power grid was old, it was aging, it's very susceptible to cyber attacks and actual physical attacks, which there have been several of those over the years. Where substations have been shot up, and they've been unable to really figure out what's going on. The FBI's gotten involved, and you hear about it for a day or two, and then it goes blank. You don't hear anything else about it. But it looks like here, 70% of our transmission lines are at least 30 years old, and 60% of the circuit breakers are 35 years old, and it looks like they typically have a lifespan of around 20 years. So 70%. That's our grid is horribly aged. And then jumping down here, so our grid is broken into three parts. Looks like you have the eastern, the western, like Midwestern. Texas kind of has their own thing. I was a little unsure when I was looking over this. They said three parts, but then they had it broken into four with Texas. So I'm, a little unsure about that. But apparently, this report stated that the vulnerability to the grid is hackers are able to gain access to it due to remote access and connections to business networks. So they, again, just like in the water treatment facilities, they were using these remote access, ways to gain entry into the network to, check things like at the water treatment facilities, check levels and chemical levels and whatnot. Looks like here it's about the same thing for the power grid. Employees and contractors can get on there, see if there's any type of issues, things like that. Well, they have these access points, and the article stated a lot of times they have really weak passwords, and a lot of these hacking groups are able to figure it out, or they use phishing, the emails to try to gain access through, covering up, what it really is. Like I said, I'm not the best with this type of stuff. It is not my thing. So just bear with me. And then, something else I started looking at was transportation, because that's one of our major sectors is transportation, and that'd be broken down into aviation, maritime, rail, and then roads. So between July 1 of 23 and July 30 of 2024, there was around 27 publicly reported cyber incidences dealing with transportation, whether that be at the ports, rail, maritime, things like that. So, it's I've thought about this for some years. A lot of this stuff I've thought about it, and just how a cyber attack would be a horrible thing. And I've heard some chit chat about our next big thing would be a 9/11 style cyber attack. because on my Instagram, I posted about this several days ago, and I kind of broke it down. I'd seen mention of this before, so I decided, I thought about it some myself. And what you would really want to do if you wanted to cause extreme panic and, loss of life is, you would hit the transportation section and cause an issue, with the switching of rail lines for subways or trains. You cause those to collide, or issues, with air traffic control. They can't communicate, things like that. You have a couple incidences, with a plane crash, and, so they hit the transportation sector with a cyber attack. And so all this panic is starting to come around. You're having emergency responders respond to these situations. The hospitals, are getting ready for this massive influx of, patients. And then you hit the healthcare system and take out their files, which I've seen some talk about that. How some of these cyber attacks could just delete patient information. So you have these patients coming in, and then the hospital's locked out of their software, out of their systems. They have no information now. Everything's in the computer. So now they have to try to revert to paper and regather this information when all of this chaos is ensuing. And then you take the next step past that, after you do those two attacks, and you hit the banking structure. People are already panicked. They're going, all these things happening. They're going to go to the bank to try to get their money out. And then you hit the banking systems with cyber attacks. Now, a lot of people are locked out from the ATMs. They can't use their cards. They can't get money out the ATMs. It could be possible they delete your whole banking history. So now you're sitting there with nothing. So, you hit that. They hit the water treatment facilities, alter the chemical levels, make the water dangerous to drink. That makes more people sick, need medical attention. And this whole thing snowballs, and it gets to the end to where all of this panic is ensuing, and then you hit the power. You have this maximum effect. You don't do all of these hits at once. You break them up to where you get maximum damage here, and then you go to your next attack, then your next attack, and your next attack, and all of this just keeps snowballing until you hit the last one. So it's something to keep in your back of mind. Like I've said before in a prior video, you can't live in fear. You can't live in fear. That's what terrorists and, groups like that want. They want you to live in fear. What you can do is prepare to the best of your ability. Have a plan. Prepare the best you can. Pray to our Lord. Have your faith in line. Enjoy yourself, enjoy being with your family, but just pay extra attention and get yourself prepared just in case. It never hurts to be prepared, just in case. But I'm going to leave it at that for now. Stay safe. Minuteman out.